Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to look at Aruba User Experience Insight. We are going to learn UXI Dashboard fundamentals, how the sensor works, and the best practices. Also, you will learn the principles of UXI. This course is intended for UXI customers and all the external audience, and the level of this course is beginner. Few things before we start. We are going to cover how the sensor works, the test cycle, how to use dashboard and how to navigate through the dashboard, the configuration for admins only users, and then the reports and the integrations. So before we start, we have two separate models of UXI sensors. The first one is the E series or the F series, which we are having this old sensors. And then our newer sensors is G series, which is cylindrical shaped, which is G5 and G6. And we have two cellular as well as non-cellular as a two different versions. And then each sensor has a different specifications and status lights. You can always check on that. And then there is a factory reset button and the mounting options, all available for G series and in the help articles. So this is a quick overview of what we are selling right now from the UXI sensors, the hardware point of view. Then how to identify the sensor model using the serial number. If you look at the serial number, the middle three digits are basically used to identify what type of sensor it is. If it's a G5C, then it will be KSN. If it's a G6, it would be KYT, and so on and so forth. You can also identify if it's a cellular and non-cellular or not by using this category. Then, in order to deploy the UXI sensors, it would be very beneficial to have understanding of how the sensor status lights, meanings, and how they work. For square-shaped E series and F series sensors, we have a different status light, whereas for cylindrical shape, which is G5 and G6 series sensors, we have a different status light meanings. And you can find all this information in our help articles and on website. Some of the best practices. So as we have more than 5,000 customers and we have a sensors deployed in all over the different verticals, these are the few best practices. You can mount the sensors 4 to 5 feet away from the ground level. It can be deployed on, where the user sits, workstations, cubicles, cafeterias, hallways, dorms, conference rooms, and so on and so forth. The idea is to deploy one per 5 to 8 access points or one per IDF or one per building or maybe per floor, depending on how big is the infrastructure is. And you can find our deployment guides in the help articles as well. So let's now look at how sensors test any network or any application and what are the test cycles meanings. Any sensor, when connected to the internet or via, you can say, Ethernet or Wi-Fi network, it performs a AP scan for Wi-Fi and it examines the RF environment nearby to it. Then it performs SSID check, then it associates to that SSID with authentication, then it allocates an IP address via DHCP. We have a way to configure static IP on sensors. Also, sensors do support .1x on both wired and wireless networks, and you can see the EAP timing. Then after that, once the IP is acquired, it will check for gateway with ARP response and request, then primary DNS and secondary DNS lookups using the DIG tool. And then finally, it will test for external connectivity, which is to our cdn.capnetworks.io. It also checks captive portal test as well and the presence of proxy. Then after the network test, we have a service test. We have a predefined test and then we have a custom test templates. And most of the time you will spend more time on custom test templates because that's when you can basically configure your own IP addresses and the URLs of your own targets. Predefined tests are often similar to custom tests, but those are for our well-known applications like Dropbox, Netflix, Slack, and YouTube. Also, there are custom test templates, like generic one will give you an ability to ping or TCP port checking. Then web server will give you HTTP and HTTPS checks as well as status codes. This also validates SSL certificates. Then we have a VoIP MOS score test where we calculate the MOS score for different variety of web conference applications that you have, like Zoom or Teams. Then we have iPerf 2 and iPerf 3 and Lieber speed test for all the throughput and bandwidth testing if you want to test any bandwidth in your network. And then we have a web application test for advanced interactions where you actually load a script using a Selenium and you can ask sensor to perform the exact same interaction on your sensors. So this is how the sensor test cycle works. Any sensor can connect up to 4 networks. It can be a combination of Wi-Fi as well as wired. So whenever sensor get onto the first network, it will check for core test, which is a network test, and then it will check a service test, which is nothing but your internal or external applications test if at all it's configured. It does this in a round robin fashion, meaning when it completes a test for one network, it releases an IP and then it will get onto the second network and then the third and the fourth. And once all the 4 networks have been tested, it will again come back to the first network and it will continue testing it for the rest of the as long as it has the connectivity. So now let's look at what happens when test fails. Tests, which are like YouTube, Dropbox, or any other test, has a certain way to test it. Like YouTube has a way where we can get upload and download speed. And you can also configure a frequency, like how much time you want to apply between the test executions in terms of 10 minutes or 2 hours. So if the error is encountered while performing this core test, then the core network test happens, like maybe a primary DNS failure or maybe DHCP, no response from DHCP. And then the internal and external checks will not happen in that case, and it will basically raise an issue. In order to see the time gap between the two test cycles, you can see it under the test results charts on the dashboard. You can go to the 1 hour timeline and you can select that timeline of 1 hour and you can see the AP association time like this. And you can see that between the two test cycle, we have a 3-minute time gap. It really depends on how many networks and how many tests that are configured on that sensor. It also depends on if the sensor is undergoing any issues because sensor re-record the test again and again in the triage mode. But you can see it in the test results charts, how much time it is spending on one test cycle. Now let's look at some of the fundamentals of UXI dashboard. Before jumping into the dashboard, anybody can have access to the dashboard in 2 separate ways. The first one is the admin access, where you can get all the access to all the dashboard functions, like you can configure it, you can make changes, whereas read-only access is restricted, where you can not make any change, you can only have a limited view of a configuration. Also, you cannot download an on-demand PCAPs and it can be restricted to a specific group of sensors. So for example, if you want to configure something or someone to just for maybe one specific location to have access to, you can configure it under settings page, under Teams, and you can add that user into a read-only with restricted access to that legacy group. Then we have 3 different views for our dashboard when you actually land on the status page. We have a main page where you can get the experience summary, service view, and internal and external applications, which is a default view of user experience with green happy face when everything is good. And if it's a red, that means something is going on. Then in the map view, you can actually see the geolocations of all your sensors deployment. And then finally, the tile view or the brick view is for the sensors, which can be shown in a grid view. And you can actually sort that sensors with all the ongoing issues sensors at the top, followed by the green ones which don't have any issue. So now let's look at the default view. Under the default view, you would get the experience column, which can be displayed with status of the sensor. Then we have a service column, which can be displayed for status of the network and the network services. And then the internal and external column, which displays the status of all the applications which are internal or external to that system or that organization. Then we have a hierarchy view where you can drill down by selecting into a drop-down menu, and you can select a specific group or a subgroup inside that parent group. And then you can easily search for sensors with a specific name or a serial number. Then we have some indicators and shortcuts. Green means everything is okay. Blue means there is an issue, and red means there is an issue which is a part of an incident. So let's understand blue first. With 20 and more than 20 sensors, you would get something called as AIOps, incident detection. And with incident detection, you would get that blue color. What it does mean that it's a issue going on with the dashboard, but it's something like you're just, keeping it under the rug or something like that. You know about that issue, but you're not taking any action. So that we turn that issue into the blue color. Then we have a click for more options in the smiley faces or in the circles, and you can look for the last 30 days of summary of all the issues going on into that particular network or that particular application. Then if you hover over each sensor, then you would get number of sensors with the errors, and all the ongoing issues per group. Then we have a lightning symbol for power outage. And then we have a few keyboard shortcuts. If you apply S, then you can go to the settings page. If you apply W, you can switch the account if you have more than one account. And then if you apply F, then you can go for a filters. Then you can select a dashboard view according to your own facets or your own filters that you want to see, just for issues or just for happy faces, or how one particular network is performing or how one particular application is performing. And you can sort out the dashboard view according to your own way. So this is how the filters looks like. You can filter the view with good, warning, or error sensor state. Then with the wireless networks and with the wired networks, if you just want to see a particular network performance. Or if you want to see just the group performance, you can select a group there, like a San Jose or Santa Clara, and you can only get the dashboard view, just depending on how you select the facets here. Then we have a UXI dashboard with page navigations. So if you go to the sensor status page, you would see all the test results in that. And in the test results charts, you have an expand column where you can see each and every metric for all the sensors which are being tested for that particular service. And then in the service status page, it's a similar thing. You will get all the metrics, and when you perform the expand option, you would get all the sensors view for that particular latency or packet loss, or how the sensor is performing in one particular location compared to other location for that particular service. And you can easily quantify that. Then moving on to the next one, we have a timeline view where you can select a data up to a last 30 days, which is available on the dashboard. You can click and drag it. All the zoom in and all the functionality is still there in the test results charts. You can select a previous timestamp to zoom out as well. And then you can get last star view, and you can see the time gap between the two test cycle executions. Then in the test results view, all the successful tests are recorded in the test results charts. And then all the time series graphs that you see are nothing but having the metrics inside it. And then in the about section, you would see the sensor details, like what is the sensor serial number, what is an IP, MAC address, DHCP, DNS, and all that. And then we have a Wi-Fi environment visualization chart where you can see the AP name, the last seen, vendor name, and if your channels are being overlapped or not, interference is happening or not. And you can also see the AP name inside that info bubble if the APs that you have is broadcasting its name into the beacon frames. Then we have two types of issues. The first one is the thresholds. So thresholds are something like when the test is succeeded, but the result that is obtained is beyond certain limit that you have set up. So in this case, we have high channel utilization where my channel utilization is exceeding the limit that I have set. So threshold violations is one type of issue. Then we have a complete failure, like internal service is unavailable, for which you will get issue triage, which is nothing but a back-in-time step-by-step analysis. So let's look at it. When the test is not successful, sensor will re-record the test and sensor will start recording or performing that test again and will capture a packet capture file for you. And you can see it under the issue triage. So as you can see from the top, we are displaying the issue, what is happening in the internal service, the name and the sensor serial number, the test that is failing, the error context, where you can see all the back-in time information when the sensor was attached, and then the issue summary on the Wi-Fi as well as on the Ethernet, and you can download a packet capture. And you can basically get a complete picture where the exact issue is happening. So for example, in this case, I know that my Wi-Fi is okay, my gateway is okay, and my DNS is okay. That means my internal network was performing exactly good. But there was an issue with service unavailability on the endpoint side or on the application side. So I know as a network admin that there is no network issue in this case, there is an application issue for this one. Then moving on to the AI Ops incident detection and how it works. As I already told you that incident detection will be enabled with 20 plus sensors on the dashboard. With the AI Ops, you would get a functionality of AI ML algorithm, wherein you can get all the issues characterizes with the issue type, sensor category, category of issues, and all that. With the incident overview page, you would get the impact analysis, wherein you can see the groups that are impacted by the issues, the network, and the service. Let's take a step back and let's understand how the incident detection works. Whenever there is an issue happening with multiple sensors, you normally receive multiple errors. And sometimes it's so annoyed that your jump box or your mailbox gets full because of lot of notifications are happening or received by. With the incident detection, we have a functionality to club these issues together if they are relevant. So for example, if you have a DNS issue happening on multiple sites with more than 1,000 sensors, our AI/ML algorithm will determine the common anomaly and will give you only a single incident in this case. So you would receive this particular DNS issue is happening on 4 groups with one network or one service. And you can actually see these sensors in the map view on the right hand side. And you can see the incident issues and the ongoing issues on the on the left hand side, where you can see the HTTPS timeout for that particular service. And you can forward this and export it in form of data push destination, and you can create a ticket out of it. Now let's understand the mutes. So let's say if you don't want to receive any notification, you can mute that particular service or a network or a sensor. But we need to understand that when you have AI ops incident detection, there is no way to mute an incident. Mutes only affect with the visual representation of the dashboard. That if you don't want to see whether the issue is happening and it is getting added to an incident to our any notification. Also, we need to note here that read-only users will receive incident notifications regardless of group assignment. And mutes are company-wide and not user-specific. So if somebody muted for one particular sensor, you as an administrator will not get any uh, issue or for that particular service, and other people also will not get any notification for that particular issue failure. Now let's jump into the UXI configuration part. In the UXI, We have a way to configure a networks first, where you can define how to connect that particular sensor either to a wireless or wired network. Then you can assign a sensors to a particular network or a group of networks. Then you can basically select the groups of sensors and you can create a groups and the hierarchy as well. And then you can assign test per group or per network with the chain selection option available in the service and app test. Then we have a thresholds where you can basically define the global and rolling average calculations of the thresholds. Then we have a notifications where you can mute that notification or you can select an email settings or email arrival depending on your regular hours or normal hours or business hours. We have a reports, which is new. So you can now either create on-demand report or you can schedule reports for future. We have AI Ops toggle. You can enable it and disable it if you have 20 plus sensors. We have a subscription management page, which is newly defined, and you can now see when your subscriptions are expired, what is the license key, and all that details. Then we have integrations where you can see the data push destination. You can export all the issues into your own buckets. And then we have a single sign-on support as well with your IDP. Then in the team, you can see all the admins like read-only or full admins with full privileges or not. And then in the company section, you can see and define 30-day audit logs as well as you can turn off the PCAP if you don't want to take your sensors to take a PCAP for every issue. Then in the network advanced options, we have a couple of options in there. You can select a network alias. You can band lock that particular sensor to a particular network, either 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. You can select IPv6 if your network infrastructure selects IPv6. You can go for a DNS lookup domain if you have your own lookup domain. You can define a proxy and all those NTLM and authentications for proxy. Then you have a external connectivity checks toggle. You can turn it off if your network is internal and does not have any external connectivity. And then in the Ethernet VLANs, you have a similar kind of network advanced options with the VLANs to define. Then in the sensors advanced options, you have an option to assign a static IP, and it is IPv4 only right now. You can log that sensor to a particular BSSID. You can select a PCAP setting, either full or light. Light means the sensor will only upload PCAP with the first discovery of issue, and full means for every discovery of issue, it basically uploads the packet capture file to the dashboard. Then we have a notes. So for example, if I just want to put a note there that this is a first floor sensor and it has something specific, you can put those notes in that particular sensor status page and it will get displayed on the sensor status page. We have expand from settings to set the sensor on the map so you can locate that sensor geographically. And we have additional info for packet capture as well. Like for example, any sensor can perform on-demand packet capture if you have a admin access, you can click on that. And then we have a triage PCAP automatically gets attached to every issue that it encounters if you have a PCAP full setup. PCAP files are not uploaded via cellular connection, but issues can if that sensor lost connectivity to both wired and wireless network. And in the on-demand PCAP file, you would receive like 3 different files. Of course, the first one is the Ethernet interface PCAP, and the rest of those are wireless interface PCAPs, where you can first get unencrypted sensor communication between the Wi-Fi, AP, and sensor. And the second one is the wireless 82.11 frames between the sensor and the AP. Then this is how you configure a test. So you create a group, you make a group first, which is a legacy groups, and then you select those groups on the left-hand side. Then you select the network that you want to create a test for, and then you create a test for a specific group and specific network. Then all this information that we just talked about, you can basically get a summarized reporting and you can customize the issue or incident reports like this. You can pick your own sensor groups and networks, and you can schedule monthly, weekly, or daily reports. You can specify the date and time as well. So the benefit of using these reports are you can forward this to any C-level executives or somebody who just want to see how your baselining is happening or how your network is performing over the period of, let's say, last 30 days or something. So these are like few screenshots of how the reporting looks like on the UXI dashboard. Then we were receiving a lot of asks from the customer that we wanted to have a way to basically offload the data, and they want to get all the data that sensor is seeing, because on average sensor runs a test quite often, and it's like around 60,000 tests on average per sensor per day. uh, so they want to receive that data and baselining it onto their own infrastructure, like AWS S3 and something like that. So we developed something called as data push destination, by using which you can actually export test results, issues, and incidents from the UXI cloud or from the UXI dashboard into your own buckets like AWS S3, Google BigQuery. We have a generic HTTP endpoint using which you can create your own ServiceNow or PagerDuty or SomaLogic instance attached to the cloud. Then we have Elasticsearch, and we have a Splunk in beta as well. So using this different destinations, and of course we are going to support many destinations in the future if that supports uh, UXI Cloud data format. And you can export test results, which are like successful test, issues, which are like the test failures, and incidents, which is our AIML algorithm is giving you in the form of a combination of all the issues. So these are some resources that we have already tested and tried, and it's supported. You can say like that. Uh, so we have tested with almost all the well-known cloud providers, and many will be coming in the futures as well. So yeah, feel free to go for it and test it out by your own. Then if you have a single sign-on, or if you have your own identity provider, we can create a single sign-on with UXI Cloud, and you can attach your own IDP to the UXI Cloud, so that any administrator or any user who want to access the UXI dashboard, they can just click through it using your maybe Okta tile or something, and they can get access to UXI dashboard. The few things to note here is new users are created as read-only users only. So if you want to configure an admin users, you still want to go back to the normal admin creation using a dashboard. Okay, then let's go to the next one. So this is for a central integration. So if you have a Aruba Central, which is either Aruba Central on-prem or Central Cloud instance, you can link UXI dashboard with the Central Cloud. You can link it by creating a token from the Central and feeding it into the dashboard. We have all the steps written over here, so you can feel free to go for it and create your own Central and UXI integration. Once the integration is done, you should be able to see the integration uh, as working on the UXI dashboard. And then if you go to the central, if you go to the network health view on the central, you should see the UXI status there if you have a sensor there on the site. And it should see uh, all the sensor status page, like everything is good, user experience is working fine. And if you have any ongoing issues, you should be able to see that as well. And if you have a single sign-on, you can actually click on that smiley face and you can directly log into the UXI dashboard. So that's a, other benefit of having central integration. All right, so we are going to actually, towards the end of this presentations. So something if doesn't, look good on the UXI dashboard, or if you have any questions, please feel free to refer to our UXI help articles. We always have 24/7 chat box where we have a support engineers which are actually handling the support cases. You can also email to support@capenetworks.com. And if there is a dashboard outage or something like that happens, we have a status.capenetworks.com as well, and you can refer to that. So with that, thank you for listening in, and I'll see you into the next one.